Hello everyone! We are the Galadza family. This is Mears. I was once a registered nurse, but now I am a full-time registered nanay of 3 girls. Eloise is 8 years old and she's currently in 2nd grade. Tiana is 5 years old and she's a kindergarten student. And the newest addition to our family is Nisi, who just turned 1 month actually. Okay, so the head of our family is Franz. He's a chef and a food entrepreneur. And by God's grace, we're going to share to you our homeschooling journey. The decision to homeschool them was a product of years of research and constant prayers. Because you see, we are the first generation homeschoolers in both of our families. I know a lot of you could relate to that. And not to mention, my mother-in-law is a SPED teacher and my sister is also in the academe. So when we broke to them the news that we're going to homeschool our kids, it's just natural that we got really negative reactions. But despite these oppositions, I praise God because He used Franz to confirm and affirm my decisions. Proverbs chapter 3 verse 5 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding." So my only prayer back then was, if this is the will of God, that we will be treading this untrodden path, then He would use Franz to fully support us emotionally and of course financially. And praise God, He did. So during the first year of our homeschooling, I was so overwhelmed, because during this time, Eloise still cannot read at all, while her younger cousins started to read at an early age. And for us, we can't help but compare. And during the time, I felt like a failure. What am I doing wrong? Is homeschooling really for me? You know what? God is faithful. So in Proverbs chapter 11, verse 14, let me read it, okay? It says, "Where there is no guidance, the people fall, but in abundance of counselors, there is victory." So I am very thankful that in Homeschool Global, we have a community of very supportive parents, of family advisors who taught us to not focus or not dwell on the weaknesses of our kids, but to focus on their strengths, which I did. And it was such a relief during the time because I was assured that my kids, they're growing normally. I think that is one of the reasons, or that is one of the concerns of most parents here, because we feel like we're not enough, or we sometimes doubt our skills, especially if we're not, if we didn't graduate, or we don't have a degree in education, or we don't have any experiences in teaching younger kids, right? But I'm very thankful that we have a very supportive community here at Homeschool Global. And another obstacle that I encountered was, applying what I learned in school and bringing it at home, hence homeschool, right? No. So I unconsciously became the terror teacher that was so focused, that was so overwhelmed with the schedules and the outcomes, So I began to feel exhausted. And because of my obsessive compulsive tendencies when it comes to meeting deadlines or following the schedule to the letter, I find myself really thinking, is this really for our family? Well, why is it so hard? And you know what? That is normal. I know everyone can relate to that. thing I noticed was I never really fell in love with learning. For me, it was equated with more study, you know. So when I finally graduated from my college studies, it felt like freedom. I don't need to study anymore, yay! And I got the liberty to pursue the things that I really want, like cooking, music, sports, or arts, you know. So it felt like when I heard about homeschooling, it, it felt like home to me, you know. This is what I wanted. So I tried reading blogs like Teach with Joy, and I met her kids and other homeschooled kids, and I saw how they love to learn without any competition. And I think it boosts them, you know, it encourages them to learn more on their own. So I think that is a plus for me. Still, the big question is, how do I homeschool? Will my children really learn from me despite my flaws? Well, you know what? That's where the trainings and workshops of Homeschool Global and of other veteran homeschooling moms come into play. You know, you will learn a lot from their experiences, not only from the theoretical side of teaching, but most importantly from the practical side. And not only did I discover something about my kids and myself, but you know what? I began to fall in love with learning per se. So don't be afraid. I mean, you know, try to explore. This is where I began to read books after books after books, and I read blogs like Teach with Joy, and you know, I learned that this is quite normal for her, and the struggles that I'm thinking and then that I'm experiencing, they're all part of the journey. So you know, the best part is when I met her kids and I met other homeschooled kids, I saw their love for learning, and that is without competition. You know, they bloom on their own, and I was really happy about that, because I didn't experience that, you know. So when I saw it in my kids, I told to myself, okay, this is what I envisioned from the start, you know. And one thing I noticed was when my kids saw that I began to enjoy learning, they also became more curious. So, you know, one thing I learned is that the passion for doing what we do will eventually cascade down to our kids. You know, 3 years down the line, I wouldn't have it any other way. The sleepless nights and the messy house, you know, they were nothing compared to the joy, the results that I'm seeing. You know, even when my kids constantly bicker with each other, it's nothing compared to the results. You know, one time, when France had relatives who visited us from the US, you know, these were adults. They were born and they raised there in the US, and they knew nothing of Tagalog. So, you know, during our time, we didn't grow up in an English-speaking community, and aside from that, I'm also an introvert, you know. I literally avoided them. So what I did was I kept myself busy at the kitchen, and you know, I tend to cook and then do anything else but, you I actually literally avoided being left alone with them. And then during this one time, I overheard Eloise. She was talking to them. She was asking, "So how was your trip here in the Philippines? Is this your first time? Do you find it beautiful? What are the things that you like so far?" I was so dumbfounded because I thought to myself, where was the 7-year-old back then daughter? Where is she? So what happened was she was the one who entertained them all throughout their stay here, and his relatives were so shocked because they couldn't believe that she was homeschooled. So eventually my in-laws, my relatives, my friends found out that my kids aren't antisocial at all. So there was also this one time that I have handmade letters that I keep in my wallet. I think this was during the first year of our homeschooling. I was able to shout at them. I had to confess. I really have a bad temper that until now I'm still addressing. So I shouted at them out of frustration and stress. And then my kids, they went to the room crying. Then they came back, Eloise came back with a letter. It says there, "Mommy, I love you, Eloise." Or, "Mommy, I love you, love Eloise," it says there. And then she went to explain that, "You know what, Mommy, even though you shouted at us, we still love you and we'll always forgive you." Wow, talk about undeserved grace, right? And then my 5-year-old, she also gave a letter with the word faith on it. At this time, I haven't even taught her the word faith, or I haven't taught her how to write faith. So I was really shocked that she wrote it down on her own in a letter. So these things remind me that God is there encouraging me to have faith in Him and faith in my kids. So I literally cried my heart out after this. And you know what? Nobody's perfect. Not even us parents. But with God's grace, He will be there with us. He's a perfect God. He will be with us on our journey. So if you ask me, will we continue homeschooling? My answer is yes, definitely. Until when? Until God tells us to stop. Well, hopefully until grade 12. So, and why do we ask? 3 things. Love for learning, love for family, and love for God. So before I end, I want to share with you what I heard from one of our senior pastors in his preaching at church that really made a huge impact in our decision to finally homeschool. He said, "No amount of success can compensate failure at home."